There are machines on rails that push the boundaries of engineering, challenging our very idea of the possible. These are not merely trains, they are industrial spacecraft on terrestrial rails. Goliaths of steel weighing over 660,000 pounds, nearly 300 metric tons, built to conquer the world's most demanding landscapes. These are real-world colossi on rails, forged in moments when history demanded unprecedented strength and innovation. But how does an engineer design a machine so massive that the very ground beneath it must be reinforced simply to bear its weight? This is the story of the most monstrous locomotives ever built. Prepare to witness the titans of the track. Our journey begins in the year 1953, with a giant born not from a desire for speed, but for survival. Its battlefield, the Karoo Desert in South Africa, a vast, arid landscape where scorching heat and a desperate lack of water were a death sentence for any conventional steam engine. To conquer this terrain, engineers needed more than just power. They needed a miracle. They created the Class 25. This machine was a masterpiece of adaptation, weighing nearly 460,000 pounds. Its genius was not in how much water it carried, but in how little it lost. It was a self-sustaining ecosystem on wheels. Exhaust steam from the cylinders, normally lost to the sky, was channeled into a colossal, streamlined tender. Here, a system of radiators and powerful fans worked against the desert heat, forcing the vapor to cool. The steam condensed back into water and was fed directly back into the boiler. The result was revolutionary: 600 miles, without a single stop for water. That's the distance from New York City to Detroit on a single tank. This incredible range was enabled by the locomotive's unique 4/8-4-wheel arrangement, providing the raw power to haul heavy freight and the flexibility to navigate the demanding landscape. It was an engine that made its own rain in the middle of a desert. Its sound was unforgettable: the deep hiss of the boiler, a sharp whistle slicing through the dry air, and the quiet sigh of recycled steam instead of a violent blast. This was not a brute. It was a survivor, a titan of ingenuity designed to outsmart the very environment that sought to defeat it. But its elegant design concealed immense force. Inside its boiler, the pressure was 20 times higher than the air we breathe. After steam giants capable of deceiving the desert, an era of diesel fury arrived. If the Class 25 was the pinnacle of its technology, then in 1995, General Electric unleashed the absolute king of power, the AC 6000 CW. At its heart was a purpose-built V16 engine, the 7HDL16, designed for one mission: raw, unbridled force. 6,000 horsepower. That is the equivalent of placing 6 Bugatti Veyron supercars on a single set of rails. This immense power was converted into electrical energy, feeding alternating current traction motors that allowed the locomotive to pull unimaginably heavy freight across continents. But this level of force created a new problem. As the 196-ton machine began to move, its traction motors would grip the rails, unleashing a torrent of torque. The steel tracks beneath would visibly bend under the strain. Its sound at full throttle is not a simple roar. It is rolling thunder, a deep, continuous vibration felt through the ground, through your bones. The force was so extreme that railroad companies had to reinforce their tracks just to withstand its passage. This was no longer just a locomotive. It was a 432,000-pound hammer, designed to move mountains of coal and ore. It earned a fitting nickname from those who witnessed its sheer size and stable power under extreme loads: the land barge. But what if power isn't just 6,000 horsepower? What if, in the 21st century, true strength is flexibility? In 2020, Siemens delivered its answer: the hybrid titan, Vectron XXL. This is not simply another locomotive, it's a chameleon on rails, designed to conquer a continent of fragmented infrastructure. Inside its 92-foot frame, two hearts beat. One is a 16-cylinder diesel engine, a muscular powerhouse generating 3,200 horsepower for the old tracks where no electric lines exist. It thunders across the countryside, a familiar roar of diesel might. Then, the landscape changes. Overhead lines appear. The locomotive senses the grid. A pantograph rises, making contact with the wire, and the diesel engine falls silent. The transition is seamless. The brute becomes a ghost. It now glides on pure electricity, drawing power directly from the network. This duality is its genius. No more swapping engines at the border. No more wasted time. Just pure adaptive efficiency. It's a machine built for two different worlds: the world of open, rumbling power and the world of quiet, urban precision. And as it slips through a sleeping city, the loudest sound is the whisper of steel on steel. A modern diesel can conquer the plains, but decades earlier, engineers faced a different challenge, one that required not just power, but primal force. They needed to master the mountains. So in 1941, the steam titan was born, the Allegheny H8. Its mission was to generate biblical power, 7,500 horsepower, a number forged in fire and steam. It was built by the Lima Locomotive Works to haul immense loads of coal through the treacherous grades of the Appalachian Mountains. The machine weighed over 1 million pounds, a mass equivalent to 75 adult African elephants set on rails. But its sheer size created a paradox. How could a rigid giant navigate the tight, winding mountain passes? The answer was an engineering marvel, an articulated frame. On a straight track, it appears as one continuous, impossibly long machine. But as it enters a curve, the locomotive's frame visibly breaks in the middle, allowing the front engine to pivot independently from the rear. The two sets of 6 massive driving wheels follow different paths, yet they work in perfect, brutal unison. This 2666 configuration gave it the flexibility of a smaller engine with the pulling power of a behemoth. Its boiler superheated water into steam at 20 times the pressure of the atmosphere, feeding the cylinders that moved a train of 160 loaded freight cars up a steep incline. Alone. No helper engines required. Its piercing whistle echoed through the foggy hills, followed by the rhythmic pounding of its colossal wheels on the track, a sound of pure mechanical dominance. The age of steam was ending, and the rise of diesel sent these giants to an early retirement. But their purpose was fulfilled. It didn't just haul freight, it commanded the mountains. From the primal power of steam that conquered mountains, we leap into the 21st century. Here, the challenge is not vertical, it is horizontal, an endless expanse. To cross China's vast, non-electrified territories, engineers required a new philosophy. Not one engine, but two, fused into a single high-speed spear, the DF-11G. Launched in 2004, the DF-11G was designed to solve a problem of immense scale, connecting megacities like Beijing and Shanghai across vast distances without relying on electric lines. The solution was a permanent twin-unit diesel locomotive. 2 engines, one unbreakable bond. Together, their combined V16 power plants generate over 6,400 horsepower. This is a machine built for velocity. It stretches 144 feet, longer than a 14-story building laid on its side. Where its predecessors were often brutalist blocks of steel, the DF-11G is sleek and aerodynamic. A wedge-shaped nose slices through the air, allowing it to regularly achieve speeds over 100 miles per hour on long-haul passenger routes. It is a blur of motion. Even as high-speed electric rail expands, this diesel workhorse continues to thunder between China's greatest cities, a symbol of endurance and speed. It proved so effective that it didn't just fulfill a mission, it set a new benchmark for an entire generation of Chinese long-haul diesel locomotives. The DF-11G conquered distance. But what if the environment itself tries to destroy the train? We travel beyond the Arctic Circle, where the Bombardier IORE wages a daily battle with ice and snow. With 10,800 horsepower, this is a machine built for a single purpose: to survive the brutal extremes of Northern Europe. Its operational theater is the Malmbanan iron ore line, a frozen route connecting Kiruna, Sweden and Narvik, Norway. Here, sub-zero temperatures are not a risk, they are the norm. The process begins in darkness. 8,000 metric tons of iron ore are loaded into the cars, the weight of the Eiffel Tower, in a single train. Then the journey starts. A brilliant red locomotive cuts through a white canvas of Arctic snow. Its 12-powered axles bite into the icy rails, fighting for every inch of traction. This is not transportation, it is a relentless assault on a hostile world. But this brutal strength is born from a quiet, clean source. The IORE's massive electric motors are fed entirely by renewable hydroelectric energy. It's a paradox of engineering, a machine of immense industrial might powered by the very landscape it dominates. The combination of a nearly silent electric hum and the sharp screech of steel on ice creates a soundtrack unique to the Arctic rails. It's a lifeline designed for absolute endurance, a testament to function over form in one of the planet's harshest environments. Over its service life, it travels more than 2.5 million miles. That is like circling the Earth 100 times without ever leaving the frozen north. Can a train be a work of art? In 1939, the Pennsylvania Railroad answered that question. They created a machine that was less a locomotive and more a moving sculpture. It was a vision of the future that proved too big even for itself. This is the story of the PRR-S1. The commission went to industrial designer Raymond Loewy. His sketches showed a stark departure from the angular, utilitarian steam engines of the day. He imagined flowing aerodynamic lines, polished metal curves hiding all the mechanical fury within. The result was unveiled at the 1939 New York World's Fair. It wasn't on a sidetrack, it was the centerpiece, a rolling masterpiece of Art Deco design that left crowds in stunned silence. It was impossibly large, 140 feet long, longer than a blue whale, the largest animal on the planet. It remains the longest passenger steam locomotive in American history, and this was its fatal flaw, a beautiful failure. The giant's rigid frame could not navigate the tight curves of the very railroad that built it. It was a titan confined to the straightest, simplest routes, a lonely giant on depot tracks, too magnificent to be useful. After years of limited service, the dream was over. Only one S1 was ever built, and in 1949 it was cut apart for scrap. S1 became a legend, but even its ambitions pale before a Soviet experiment that tried to fit an unimaginable number of driving wheels into a single locomotive. The futuristic PRR-S1 was incredibly ambitious, but even it pales before the Soviet experiment that tried to fit an unimaginable 20 driving wheels into a single, rigid locomotive. This is the story of a machine built against all common sense. The year is 1934. The goal? To forge the largest, most powerful steam engine on Earth. It was an act of industrial will, a statement of ideological strength. They built it simply to show they could. The result was the AA-20-1, a monster. It stretched 135 feet long, the equivalent of placing a blue whale, the largest animal on the planet, onto a set of railroad tracks. But its true insanity was in the wheels. It started with a four-wheel leading truck meant to guide the behemoth. Then, a seemingly endless line of 14 massive driving wheels, a solid wall of steel transmitting 4,200 horsepower to the rails. The machine finished with another four-wheel truck at the rear, struggling to support the colossal frame. The configuration? 4-14-4, the first and only of its kind. The theory was simple. More wheels meant more grip, but the reality was a catastrophic failure of physics. On any standard curve, the result was a deafening screech of tortured metal, the sound of an unyielding monolithic frame grinding against rails it could never navigate. The locomotive destroyed track. It derailed. It was an engineering dead end. In the end, only one AA-20-1 was ever completed. It never entered full operational service. But where the Soviet giant was a failed experiment, the next locomotive was built to work. In 1969, for its 100th anniversary, Union Pacific released a monster onto the rails, a machine that contained the power of 2 diesel hearts. The engineering logic was pragmatic. Replace 2 standard locomotives with 1 colossal unit to reduce maintenance and increase efficiency. The solution was the EMDDDA-40X Centennial, a nearly 100-foot-long platform for a radical fusion of power. Inside, engineers installed 2 separate V16 diesel engines, each driving its own set of axles. One locomotive doing the work of 2. The combined output was immense, 6,600 horsepower. To this day, it remains the most powerful diesel-electric locomotive ever built. The sound was a signature of its power. Imagine the roar, not of one, but of 2 massive engines working in perfect unison. A deep, guttural hum that vibrated through the ground long before the train ever appeared on the horizon. This raw force was designed to conquer the punishing terrain of the American West, hauling the heaviest freight with a single machine. When this behemoth thundered past, its dual-engine roar shaking the very air, you didn't just watch it, you experienced it. The power of 6,600 diesel horsepower is impressive, but it pales before the fiery heart of the greatest steam locomotive in history, a machine that weighs 1.2 million pounds and still shakes the rails of America. It was built by the American Locomotive Company to solve a single massive problem, hauling immense freight trains over the steep grades of Sherman Hill without needing a second engine. During its construction, a factory worker scrawled 2 words in chalk on its colossal smokebox door: Big Boy. The name stuck. Its genius lies in the 4884 articulated frame. As the locomotive enters a curve, the massive chassis physically bends in the middle. 2 independent sets of 8 driving wheels pivot beneath the single boiler, allowing this giant giant to navigate winding mountain tracks with an impossible grace. Its total weight is more than 3 blue whales forged into a single rolling engine of power, and when it passes, you don't just see it, you feel it. The ground trembles. The sky vanishes behind clouds of pressurized steam. The air fills with a symphony of industry. The metallic clash of giant wheels, the rhythmic hiss of the boiler, and a piercing whistle that rips through time itself. For decades, these titans were silent relics, museum pieces. Then, in 2019, Union Pacific did the unthinkable. They resurrected a giant. They brought one back to life. Today, it tours the country as the largest, most powerful operating steam locomotive on the planet, a living monument of steel and fire. And the name of this living legend is Big Boy number 4014. And when the steam from Big Boy number 4014 dissipates, we understand. These are not just machines. They are monuments, symbols of entire eras, testaments to human ambition, frozen in steel and fire. Each locomotive is a physical record of the age that built it, the peak of its technology, and the limit of its vision. From the proven, pragmatic power of the Big Boy to the sheer engineering audacity of the Soviet AA-20, one, the apex of a proven design, the other, a gamble on a radical future, a legend versus an experiment. Now the question passes to you. Which of these giants impressed you most? The legendary Big Boy, the king of the rails, or the insane Soviet AA-20 with 20 driving wheels? The perfected icon, or the ambitious dream? Let us know in the comments below. If you are driven by the stories of steel, steam, and scale, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. We will see you in the next video.